Hey guys, what's going on? It's Clever Techie, and in this video we're going to continue covering top 100 PHP functions, and in this video we're going to cover function 11 through 20. Alright, so the first function on the list is PragMatch, and this function, I use this one a lot to parse out the content from websites, and it performs regular expression match. So let's break down the function. So first of all, it returns an int, so it's going to be true if there is a match and false if there's no match. So if we just wanted to check if the value or string is found on a web page or something like that, we would just use an if statement, and we could continue using the program or running the script if the string or the pattern is found on a web page. Otherwise returns 0 if there is no match. Though this function is a lot more complex, so we can use match to store our match inside of an array, which is really awesome, so that we can continue working with whatever match that the function has found. And first we provide the pattern, which is a regular expression pattern. Then we provide the actual subject, like a website content or a text file, and then the actual match where the values or the match is going to be stored, and finally there's optional flags as well. Alright, so let me give you an example here. So if we have some HTML, let's suppose we have an image that we're trying to match, and I'm just gonna use my website as an example here. Just gonna provide a URL to the image, one of the thumbnails on my website, and suppose we wanted just to extract this URL because we want either to download the image or display it on our own site. So here's where PragMatch can come in, and first we use the regular expression, so it's a pattern surrounded by the exclamation marks, and here we can just say img src equals / double quote / double quote, and inside the double quotes we can just say dot star question mark, which means match anything inside of the double quotes. And the reason I put this in the brackets is because it's going to be captured in our match array and put inside of the next array key. So let me show you what I mean. So here we provide the actual subject from which we're finding this regular expression, and then we're storing everything inside of the match array. So if I print the match array here and then view it, okay, so this whole regular expression pattern is has been stored inside of the 0 array key, and the parenthesized content is stored in the next array key right here. So hopefully you can see how that works. So let's suppose I also wanted to capture the extension here, so I can say dot and then png inside of the brackets. So now we can also capture the extension of this image, and it's going to be in the next array key of the match, just like that. So the more parentheses you have, the more keys PHP is going to create, storing all those matches inside of different array keys. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure this part is that you guys understand this part, because I was really confused when I was first working with this function. Alright, let's see what the next function on the list is sprintf. Okay, let's go ahead and look it up on php.net manual. So this function, honestly, I haven't used too much, but as I started learning about it, I realized just how useful it can be. So it returns a formatted string, and the return value is going to be a string. So in order to understand this, first look through these characters here. So those are basically all kinds of different ways to format the actual variable that you're going to be inserting inside the string. So just go over these and look up what all of these values mean. In this video, I'm just going to be using the percentage symbol, which is what we use to start inserting variable values. I'm also going to use D, which is basically the digit, and S, which is a string, and F, which is a decimal string or float. And it gives you this list, and it's just a really flexible way to create all kinds of different formatting types inside of your string if that's what you're looking for. So this is the actual outline of how the function works, but let me give you my own example here. So let's create the string that we're going to be using for our formatting first. So let me just type this up here. So it's going to have a digit, it's going to have a string inserted, it's going to have another string inserted, it's going to have a float and another string. Okay, so what the hell is this? Okay, so now basically you can think of the format part as a template, and this template has placeholders for the future variables to be inserted inside of this string. And not only do we specify placeholders, we also specify what type of value that placeholder should be converted to. Okay, so these placeholders obviously need to be replaced by the actual variables. So let's create those variables. Gonna create these variables now, which are gonna be numbers and strings. And you guys will see what all this means when we run the actual function, if this doesn't make any sense right now. Just stay with me here, it'll make sense. Okay, here's where we actually use the function. So the first value is format, just like specified in the manual. So that's our template that we created here. So let's specify format. And then, okay, so here's the part where PHP is going to know in which order to place those variables. So the first variable is going to be, the first variable that we provide here is going to be the first one that gets replaced here. And the second one is going to be the second one, the third one is going to be the third one, etc., etc., etc. So if we want to put our number variable here, this is the variable that we should provide here. And then this number will be inserted instead of this %d symbol. And it's going to be formatted as D, which is a argument that is treated as integer and presented as a signed decimal number. So basically an integer. Okay, so the next one I want to use is animals, and that's going to be an %s, which is a string, and that's the type of our variable. So that's going to be the second one. The third one is location, and then number 2. And this number, I don't know, I'm just gonna be converting into decimal just to show you guys an example. And then finally, insex is the last variable. So just make sure you understand that the order that we place these variables here is gonna be the same order that they're gonna be placed in our template or format here, because that wasn't so clear to me when I was first using this function. Alright, so now PHP is going to echo out the final formatted string, which is going to have our original string replaced with all these placeholders that we created and formatting them according to the format specified. Alright, so let me see what it looks like. There are 10 seagulls by the beach and 44.000000 butterflies. Okay, so hopefully right there it all came together for you. And you can see that the placeholders have been replaced by the actual variables, and they have been formatted with whatever formatting that we specified. And feel free to use all these other formatting options, play around with them, see what they do, and hopefully this function will be useful to you someday. Alright, so next up is PragMatch printf is trim. Okay, so this function is pretty useful when you want to make sure that there's no extra characters surrounding the text. So I usually use it when parsing out content from other websites and just making sure that there's no extra spaces or anything like that remaining inside of the string before placing them inside of the database, for example. And let me see, let's look it up in PHP manual. So strip whitespace or other characters from the beginning and end of a string. So that's exactly what it does. And here's a list of characters that it replaces from the beginning and end of the string. And we can also specify our own character mask, which is our own characters that we want to strip from the string. So let's just say we have some text, Clever Techie. And then let's suppose I just wanted to remove C and E from the end of the string, so I could just use trim text and then provide those exact characters. And here, what's important to understand is that these are not the characters that are going to be removed from the whole string. They're going to be removed only from the beginning and end of the string if they exist. So here C exists in the beginning, so that's the one that's going to be removed or trimmed. And E exists at the end of the string, so that's going to be removed from the end of the string as well. So now we get Clever Techie. Okay, let me just print out breaking text so you guys can see this. Okay, so we get Clever Techie without the E at the end, and you can see that the C has been removed as well. So that's how that function works, and in its default state you can just use trim text, and it's going to remove any spaces surrounding the string. Wait, what happened? Oh, okay, so that you can see that it's not removing the C and E because it's no longer the case, because we now have spaces in the text. And in the next text that's printed, there's no extra spaces surrounding that text. Okay, so that's how that works. Next is str to lower. Very self-explanatory, and I'm not even gonna look it up in PHP manual because all it does is converts all text to lowercase. So if I have some text here, and then I can just use str to lower, it's going to lower the text to lowercase, and that's all it does. Let's create something awesome with PHP in lowercase. Alright, next function on the list is file exists, and it does exactly what it says it does. It just checks if the file exists. So let me just go to some random directory here and check if this nature1.jpg exists. Just copy the whole file path, and I know that the file is in fact there, so it should exist. And if the PHP says it doesn't exist, then it's lying. So I can use if statement, say file exists, if file exists, file, then we can echo out the file exists, else echo file doesn't exist. Alright, let's see if PHP is going to lie. Nope, it's telling the truth. The file favorites1 words nature1.jpg exists. However, if I change the extension to GIF, it's gonna say it doesn't exist, and that's how easy it is to check if the file exists with file exists function. Next function is ISString. So also pretty self-explanatory. So if we have text which is a string, we can check if it's in fact a string. And then say the text is a string. As simple as that. The text is a string. Also, it can be kind of confusing just what passes as a string. So I'm taking this from PHP.NET manual. So if you have an array of values like this, I'm just gonna type all of them here, and then I'll explain what's going on. I said, hey, what's going on? Said, hey, hey. I said, hey, what's going on? Alright, so let's loop through this array now and find out which values are string and which ones are not. And I'm just gonna tell you guys right now that whatever is inside the single quotes is a string. So that is a string, that is a string, that is a string, this is a string, this is a string, and this is a string, and the rest are not strings. And I guess these are kind of tricky here because those are numbers, but they're still considered a string type, string data type, because they're inside the single quotes. Whatever is inside single quotes is still going to be considered data type string. And obviously here it's going to be an integer, here's going to be a decimal, this one's going to be an integer. Null, true, and false are not a string either. So, alright, so let's just create the loop to loop through all of these values. And I'm just going to copy this code from PHP manual. So what they did here is they used two more functions. So one of them is var export, which exports the actual value of the array without printing it to the screen or anything like that. So that's one function you can use. And then they also use var dump, and they used ISString inside of var dump to check if the value is a string. So what do we get in the end? Let's check it out. Let's go to view source, and as you can see, it's looping through the whole array, and then it's using extract. It's using var export to get the actual value here and print it out, so we know what kind of value it is. And then var dumps it and says checks if the value is a string, and then outputs false or true if it is in fact a string. So it can be kind of confusing here, but if you look through the function and understand, it's pretty easy to understand actually. So hopefully I didn't confuse you guys too much with this loop. You can just look through the array yourself and understand that which values are strings and which ones are not. Okay, so that's a ISString. Let's move on here to PragReplace. Alright, so this function is pretty similar to PragMatch, but here we can also use a replacement. So it's called PragReplace because we're also able to use a pattern of regular expressions, and then we specify the replacement to replace it with, and of course the subject, which is the actual string, or whatever. It doesn't actually have to be a string, it can be of any mixed value type. So searches subject for matches to pattern and replaces them with replacement. Pretty easy to understand. Alright, so let's suppose we have some HTML. Once again, I use these functions including PragMatch, PragMatchAll, and PragReplace to parse HTML a lot, so that's why I keep using HTML as an example. So let's suppose we have some random text that is inside the strong HTML tags, right? And let's suppose we wanted to replace these tags with italics. So that's when we can use PragReplace. And we can say PragReplace and then mixed pattern, which is our regular expression pattern, in the same way that we used the regular expression here in PragMatch. And here, in order to match this text, we can just say, don't forget to use exclamation marks, just use strong, close the strong tag, and then use that parentheses with dot, star, and question mark. So that's going to capture whatever text is in between the strong tags. And now we can replace it with italics. And here's where it gets a little tricky. In order to get the actual content that is between the strong tags, so here we captured it, and here we can reuse that capture using $1. So 1 is going to be the first capture match, 2 is going to be the second capture match, etc., etc., etc. So in a similar way that we captured those values with PragMatch, we're doing it in a similar way here, but we're replacing the value with that content instead of capturing them inside of the array. And then we provide the actual HTML or subject text. So now we should have our regular HTML, which is going to be bold, and then we should have italic HTML as well. So let's see if that works. Bold HTML, italic HTML. If I go to view page source, you can see the strong text here, and then italics on the next part of the text. Alright, so that's how awesome and powerful PragReplace is. Again, guys, if you want to understand regular expressions better, just watch my video on PHP regular expressions where I cover these in depth, and I have a really awesome cheat sheet for you to download as well. Alright, so the next one is file get contents, and this one is pretty useful when it's a pretty useful alternative to curl. So if you don't want to type a bunch of curl, you can just use this function, and you can say, for example, file get contents, and then you can just get the contents of any web page that you want. It's not as flexible as curl, so you can provide any kind of options to extract content. So this function can be used, but I guess it's a faster alternative to curl, and you can only use it if you just want to quickly scrape some content from a web page. So that's how you would do it, and that will get you all the content from Google. Refresh the page here. Actually, close this. Refresh, and that should get us the Google homepage, and there it is. So that we can extract whatever we need from this page using our PragMatch or PragReplace functions. I'm just gonna comment this out so that our next functions are loading faster. Alright, so next one is array key exists, and it does exactly what it says it does. It checks if the array key exists. So if we have an array, let's say we have an associative array with some car details with year, make, and model. So we can just say, suppose we wanted to make sure that the make key exists in this array, so we can just say if array key exists, make. So we first provide the key, and then we provide the array from which we're checking for that key. So then we can say echo the key exists, else echo the key doesn't exist. So it should print out the key exists, If PHP is not lying, the key exists. Awesome. Okay, so you can also insert year or model and it will say it exists as well, or we can also create the loop to loop through all the array keys like this. And then instead of the make here, we can just put the key and say the key exists. The key doesn't exist. So here obviously all the keys are gonna exist because we're checking for those keys, and it's just gonna say the year exists, the make exists, and the model exists. So that's how we can check for the existence of array keys, and that's pretty much all that the function does. And the last function on the list is array keys, to extract all the keys from the array, which can be super useful when you're working with multi-dimensional arrays or extracting data from the array, and you need to access the keys very quickly. So here I'm just gonna print R, use array keys, and then array that we created earlier, and that's just gonna print out all the keys that exist in the array. So it's going to be year, make, and model, and as you can see, it put it inside of the numeric array, just like that. So that's the last function on PHP list, and that's it for the top 100 PHP functions, covering function 11 to 20. So that's PragMatch from here to array keys, which is number 20. And in the next video, we're going to cover function 21 to function 30. So all of these functions here, from dir name to isNull. And I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps. And I'll see you in the next video. Clever Techie out.